At 4 in the morning, when darkness still dominates feudal Japan and the air is so cold it freezes even your breath, a samurai opens his eyes. There is no alarm clock. There is no hesitation. His body has been conditioned to awaken before sunrise, and this is no coincidence. It is survival. At this very moment begins an ancient ritual that transformed ordinary men into the most feared and disciplined warriors in history. What you are about to discover are not just curiosities, but secrets of mental and physical preparation so powerful that they shaped immortal legends. Prepare yourself, because everything you thought you knew about discipline is about to be shattered. The first thing a samurai did upon waking was a practice most would consider torture. He didn't check messages, didn't drink coffee, didn't do anything until performing misogi, a purification ritual with ice-cold water dating back to ancient Japanese myths. The samurai would emerge from his futon, which he had rolled up with military precision, ensuring each fold was perfect, and proceed outside where a basin of ice-cold water or a waterfall awaited him. This water wasn't just cold, it was absolutely freezing, especially during spring, when the snow of Mount Hakusan melted and flowed down the mountains. The samurai would immerse his entire body in this water with a single intention: to cleanse not only physical dirt, but all spiritual impurities that could compromise his mental clarity in combat. As the icy water assaulted every nerve, he would repeat the mantra, Harai Tamae Kiyome Tamae Rokun Shoujo, asking the gods to purify his 6 senses. Modern studies on cold water therapy prove that this practice dramatically increases norepinephrine levels, improving focus and the ability to cope with extreme stress. The samurai didn't know the chemistry behind it, but they knew it worked, and warriors who practiced misogi daily reported such profound mental clarity that they could see the enemy's movements before they even happened. The founder of Aikido, Morihei Ueshiba, practiced misogi at 2 in the morning every day. And it was during one of these sessions that he had the revelation that the purpose of martial arts was not to kill, but to purify the world through love and discipline. After drying his body and donning his simple kimono, the samurai practiced zazen, the seated meditation that became the heart of samurai training. Zazen was not relaxing as many think. It was absolute concentration that required sitting in a full lotus position, spine perfectly erect, eyes half closed fixed on a point, and hands forming the cosmic mudra with thumbs touching at the navel. Breathing came from the hara, the center of gravity 5 centimeters below the navel, and each inhalation and exhalation was mentally counted to 10, then restarting. If a thought arose, the samurai did not fight it, simply letting it pass like a cloud in the sky, returning attention to the breath. This practice created the state of mushin, empty mind, where the warrior did not think during the fight, simply reacting with instinctive perfection. Zen masters like Takuan Soho taught that placing the mind in any specific place was creating a mental prison that made it impossible to respond to the unexpected. The mind should be nowhere and everywhere at the same time, fluid as water. High-ranking samurai practiced zazen for an hour or more every morning, and records from the Edo period show that warriors who maintained this practice were more efficient in combat not because they were stronger or faster, but because they maintained a supernatural calmness that allowed for perfect split-second decisions. And you, could you wake up at 4 in the morning and plunge into ice-cold water before even having coffee? Leave your opinion in the comments. After meditation, as the sun began to tinge the horizon, came the physical training with brutal intensity. The samurai would take his bokken, a solid red oak sword that weighed almost as much as a real katana, and begin the suburi, cutting exercises in the air performed hundreds or thousands of times in succession. The basic cut was the men uchi, a downward vertical strike, where the sword starts horizontally above the head and descends in a straight line to strike the top of the imaginary opponent's skull. It seems simple, but executing it 1,000 times in a row while maintaining perfect form, synchronized breathing, and correct posture transforms shoulders into cast iron and concentration into steel. Samurai of the Kamakura period woke up at 4 and trained until 8 without stopping, practicing not only kenjutsu but also kyujutsu, the art of archery where they had to hit moving targets while galloping on horseback, and yabusame, an even more complex technique where the mounted archer hit 3 different targets at high speed while maintaining perfect elegance. Training wasn't constantly supervised. Samurai were expected to have the self-discipline to correct themselves, to notice when their posture was wrong, when their breathing was irregular, when their mind was wandering. There are records of samurai who trained until their fingers bled, until their muscles completely failed, and yet they continued. Each movement was repeated until it became as natural as breathing, until the body could execute it perfectly even when the mind was terrified or exhausted. But physical training was only half the preparation, because afterwards came the spiritual and intellectual preparation that separated samurai from simple soldiers. After wiping away sweat and changing clothes, the samurai performed sanpai, a ritual where he knelt before an altar dedicated to ancestors and kami, Shinto spirits that protect the family. He lit incense and spent minutes in silent prayer, not asking for victory, but expressing gratitude and reaffirming his commitment to Bushido, the warrior's code. This code included Gi, righteousness and justice, Yu, heroic courage, Jin, benevolent compassion, Rai, respect and courtesy, Makoto, absolute honesty, Meiyo, honor and glory, and Chugi, devoted loyalty. A samurai meditated on these principles every morning, asking himself if his actions reflected these values, planning how to live with more integrity. And here is a shocking aspect. Samurai also meditated on death, not in a morbid way, but as a way to release fear. They practiced Shino-kan, meditation on death, vividly visualizing their own death in every possible way, by sword, by arrow, falling from a horse, drowning, burning, poisoning. By confronting death repeatedly in their minds, fear lost its power, and the samurai entered battle with supernatural calm because he had already fully accepted his fate. The Hagakure says that the path of the samurai is found in death. When a man constantly lives as if he were already dead, he gains freedom and can live without fear of losing anything. Following the spiritual rituals came the extremely simple morning meal. The food consisted of 5 bowls of steamed brown rice, not polished white rice, but dense brown rice full of fiber and nutrients. These 5 bowls provided about 2,400 calories, almost the entire daily requirement of an adult male, accompanied by miso soup with vegetables and a dish of pickled vegetables or dried fish. In times of war, samurai sometimes ate the meat of wild animals, such as boar, deer, or bear, but never working animals. The meal was consumed in complete silence because eating was seen as an act of replenishing the body for service, not a social occasion. Samurai ate quickly, trained to finish in minutes should a sudden attack require immediate action. Lower-ranking samurai who received only 3 RIO plus rice annually, equivalent to 400 Zojo Zeron yen, or $3,640 today, barely managed to survive and took on side jobs like making paper umbrellas or raising crickets for sale. But they maintained dignity and morning discipline regardless of their economic situation. One fascinating detail is how samurai slept. They kept their dominant hand completely free and unimpeded, always ready to grasp the sword beside their pillow. This posture ensured that even if attacked during the night, they would react instantly without wasting a second. When they woke up, their first action was to check their sword, examine the blade for signs of rust, and meticulously clean it with rice paper and special oil. This care was not just practical maintenance, it was a spiritual ritual, because the katana was considered the soul of the samurai. Neglecting the sword was neglecting oneself. Samurai developed a telepathic connection with the weapon, knowing its exact weight, perfect balance point, and precise distance for each cut. There are stories of samurai using swords in total darkness with the same precision they would have in full light, simply because they had practiced so much that the sword became an extension of their own body. Another morning practice was hairstyling, and this wasn't vanity, but identity. Samurai wore the shonmage, where the top of the head was shaved and the remaining hair tied in a top knot. This hairstyle had a practical function. It kept the head cool under a heavy helmet and prevented hair from interfering with vision during combat. But it also immediately identified a man as belonging to the samurai class. The process was meticulous, involving carefully shaving the crown of the head, combing the hair until perfectly smooth, applying oil and tying it in a firm top knot. And there's a surprising detail. Samurai placed incense inside their helmets before putting them on, a practice called kabuto niko. The sweet aroma reminded the samurai of his mortality, and if he died in battle and his helmet was removed, the aroma would demonstrate that he was always prepared for death and faced his fate with dignity. It was to say, I lived and died with the same care I dedicated to each morning of my life. If you enjoyed discovering these extreme mourning rituals that transformed ordinary men into unbeatable warriors, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more fascinating content about the samurai world.